also, from someone I talked to who's pretty close to what's going on with the ACC, let me throw this out at you. The reason why, if ESPN was to take what they have right now with the ACC, which is a contract all the way through 2036, the reason perhaps that they would go back to the table with the ACC is it would lower their length of commitment, save them some money, and yes, even if they did that, the ACC teams would get more money, but over a lesser amount of time.
That's okay. So what we're referring to out there is the 2036 contract that's pretty much set in stone for the ACC that they can't get out of without some, hundreds of millions of dollars in payment, and trying to find a way around that, right? It's basically what we're talking about. Okay, so renegotiate, get a shorter grant of rights, renegotiate, get a tad more money for a shorter grant of rights. My question is this, with anything reworked ACC, what does this do to secure the future of the ACC? Why would you, this is I think what I said last time, why would you, if you have a pretty much ironclad agreement where the only way out of it is for North Carolina or Clemson or any team you want to throw into that mix that's been rumored by so-and-so on Twitter, they have to pay anywhere from 80 to 100 million or whatever the case may be dollars. And with a grant of rights that lasts for another 10 years, I'd imagine it's even higher than that, most likely. And then you talk about multiple teams. I mean, we're talking like, what, $500 million? I mean, I'm loosely throwing out, but hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So that's what's on the line for them to get what they want, which is allegedly out of this grant of rights earlier because, my gosh, another 12 years is just far too long in this changing landscape, especially when big brands are doing what they're doing, and your big brands in that conference just staring at the window, locked inside. You can't go out and play with your friends, right? So you've got that set up. Why would you shorten that? What good would that do for you to allow an exit for a Clemson years earlier than they would be allowed to exit? If you're the ACC and you want to last and you want to remain a power conference or remain a big conference, why would you open the door for those big schools to leave and put you in the same position as the Pac-12 or the Big 12 where, hey, in 10 years the ACC still exists, but now it doesn't have Clemson and it doesn't have North Carolina and it doesn't have FSU and it doesn't have Miami. But, hey, that's what I'm saying. What's the point in that?
Perhaps because the ESPN, they control the SEC, they control whatever is going to happen with the Pac-12, and right now part of it with the Big 12 and the ACC. Perhaps that allows them then to use those teams to be a part of anything else they grow if it's 5 or 6 or 7 years down the road.
Yeah, that's great for ESPN or the TV but if you're the ACC, what are you getting out of this deal? You're just letting ESPN do whatever they want to? That's what I'm saying. It's like the Big 12 are saying, you know what? Yeah, let's rework this contract. Baylor and TCU and Texas Tech, y'all are going to get an extra $20 million, and Oklahoma and Texas get out 3 years early. Like, what does that do for them?
Well, it wouldn't be that. It would not be.
Right, that's what I'm saying is what would be the point? Like that, I'm not questioning whether or not they're doing it. I have no insider info on that. I'm just asking for somebody out there that can make it clear to me, what does the ACC gain by reworking the contract?
More money.
Right.
Less stability. To their members. And no, it's just not like it wouldn't be like a 3 or 4 year deal. It just wouldn't be till 2036. It would be more money, so you would not wait until 2036 to be $50 million behind the Big Ten or SEC. Maybe you can get to a point if they lower the amount of years where you could be at least within the same altitude, but not 100 or 80 or whatever. And I'm not so sure. I'm still not sold on the Big Ten and each team. And if that happens, good for them, getting $100 million a year.
I don't know. I'm pretty sold given the fact that we're talking about billions of dollars, depending on where the source is, as far as the Big Ten and their ongoing negotiations. It seems like they're going to walk away with pretty nice money. Now, whether it's what's been alleged, I mean, who knows? But yeah, I mean, there'd be some bonus benefit for Wake Forest or Duke. They'd get a few, extra.
is the one that wanted a longer deal. It wasn't ESPN putting a gun to their heads. He wanted stability, so asked for a longer deal, which kind of goes to what you're saying as well, but things have changed dramatically since that time.
I mean, I get it. Like, if I had a long-term contract with 365 Sports and they had stupidly signed me to 2036, and for me to get out of that contract, I'd have to pay them $80 million, but I know that, hey, there's this other company that wants me, and I'm going to be making $100 million as soon as I step foot in the door, right? Why would 365 just throw me a bone? But we know we got you under contract for another 10 years, and you technically owe us a gazillion dollars, but we're going to shorten this for you. And we're going to give the other guys who are still going to be hanging around a little bit more money early on, but they don't have as much security now. And the odds are that we're not only letting you out of the door early just for a little bit extra money, but then when you leave, this whole thing's probably going to fall apart and not be anywhere near worth what it was. So what incentive, that's my question, is what incentive would Wake Forest or Louisville or Boston College or these schools that aren't guaranteed a spot at the big boys table, what other than just a bit more money in the near future, but basically no certainty beyond that, which you technically have for another 12 years, why would you eliminate that position if you were those schools and you were the ACC? Because the ACC without those schools that would want to get out earlier is not going to be as strong.
But where are they going to be in 5 or 6 years if they continue to get 35 or 40 million and everyone else is getting 85 or 90 or 100?
Still getting ratings from Clemson and Miami and Florida State, and what are they without them?
But they are falling behind the curve so dramatically. I believe the ACC. I think what will happen is I think that ESPN will renegotiate the deal. I'm not saying, no one's told me that, and I think that the other schools will get more, and along with that. Maybe it just won't be till 2036. Maybe it'll be through 2030. And that way your conference still remains stabilized. Everyone's getting more money, and your conference can... By the way, the ACC, other than the SEC, has won more national championships than anyone else.
But all those programs would probably leave. That's what I'm saying, is why are you giving them an earlier exit if you're... Okay, do you think right now that Clemson and North Carolina and schools like that want to be in the ACC until 2036?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I've never talked to any of them.
Okay, guys, do you think that they would rather be in the ACC until 2036? Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, Miami, or do you think they'd like to go right now to the SEC or somewhere else?
Oh, they're ready to bounce.
Okay,
but we don't know that. I know that sounds right because it's of this super conferences or whatever. We really don't.
We don't technically know that.
That's no different than saying that Notre Dame wants $75 million and they're going to use against the Big 12 to negotiate.
You're right. So they want to have their cake and eat it too. They might not want that, but they do want that money that those conferences provide.
Yes.
Okay, so you got to give somewhere. You're not going to get both of those things.
But what if they can get from where they are now an extra 25 or 30 million a year with a renegotiated deal, but it's just not a longer contract? They would be thrilled with that.
Yes, they would, but that's my then there it is. If you're Wake Forest, you make an extra $100 million in the next 4 years, but then after that, you're SOL because that conference probably falls apart.
Why couldn't it still be 8?
Well, I'm just throwing that out there because I mean, how far do you want to go? Is it just 2 less years? Okay, well after 2 less.
Right now it's 14 years.
Right, so that's what I'm saying is the ACC has all of the advantages. So if your explanation is let's cut this off another 2 years. How much is 2 years off of that GOR worth for ESPN to get them out 2 years earlier? $50 million extra to the schools. Okay, great. But then what happens, you got an extra $50 million, but the conference is still going to lose those guys when that time comes up. And you're saying, well, maybe not. But I just don't see where they're going to close the competitive balance, keep it all together, and keep everyone happy by just somewhat shortening and just delaying the inevitable, because I don't believe that all those schools want to just stay there, and I don't believe that even if they do, that ultimately they're going to be making SEC-type money.
No, they're not going to make SEC-type money or perhaps whatever the Big Ten is saying they're going to make, but I do believe if they could renegotiate the deal, go to the table with ESPN. ESPN keeps their conference, keeps those members, ACC keeps those members, and all of a sudden they're not as grumpy because instead of 35 or 40 million a year, they're making 65 or 70 million a year. And in the inevitability, but now at least it keeps them happy for now. Like right now, what if they do push the envelope? What if they do find a loophole? It's just from talking to somebody that's very close to some of the schools within the ACC and his idea of why they would do that.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing with you, and I hope people can understand where I'm coming from. Maybe I sound silly or something, but I'm just trying to find the logic in there. So, yeah, I mean, putting it that way, if they make an extra $50 million, but there's 4 less years on the deal, I mean, again, I see that's just delaying the inevitable of what's going to happen down the tracks. But I guess in the near term, you can at least stay happy because who the hell knows? There might be, the world exploding in 2 years and none of this will matter. But, yeah, that's all I'm trying to get down to is what benefit is there. And it's like anything else, I guess. It just comes back to money. So they would sacrifice the future of the ACC unless, on your theory, that Clemson and them are just happy to be there and will remain happy to be there. And you sacrifice this ironclad contract that you have and you slice it by a couple years to make $40 million and then everybody goes home happy.
Eric,
okay.